right.
Okay.
Well, are we recording? Yes, we are.
Yeah, record.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone to this month's Blackmere Live. We are excited to introduce Cassandra Rose. And here I'm just going to do a little introduction before we jump in on this, I think, really important discussion on building benefit equity. So our guest, Cassandra Rose, is the head of people at Fringe and is setting a new standard for optimizing human resources and diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy, having held roles at multi-billion-dollar global brands and unicorn startups. Cassandra has developed proven strategies which positively impact the physical, mental, and financial well-being of employees and embed equitable practices. And of course, our Blackmere's fearless leader, Domini, is the CEO of Blackmere Consulting, which she founded in 2011. She leads executive recruitment across a variety of industries with a functional focus on cybersecurity and data science. Under her leadership, the Blackmere team specializes in difficult to fill critical hires, including executive placement, data science, wireless research, and energy-related technical leadership. So welcome. And let's get started. I'll see you guys in about a half hour and have a wonderful conversation.
Awesome.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you, Molly. Cassandra, I was so excited to get you into this. One of the bigger issues that we face, especially in these difficult to fill positions, there is a dearth of talent, a huge demand, and figuring out for these organizations how best to manage compensation benefits that are actually going to be attractive. And frankly, the world changed in 2020. I think COVID kind of flipped things on its head. So you guys have an interesting and novel approach, and I want to hear about what you're doing and how it's making a dent in problems like that companies are facing.
Yeah, well, Domini, thank you so much for even inviting me on. This is an honor to be sharing space with you. And thanks to everyone attending or on demand, because these are really important conversations to have. And I love what you said about the fact that there's a dearth of candidates that are available and are skilled to do that. And so the best way that any company can put its foot forward is to really iron out what is their employee value proposition. What are you offering to people that is compelling for your company? And it's very easy to feel that, I need to be a leader in compensation and pay the most, or I need to have, and I love the post that you have, the most ping pong tables at an office, and create like this fun environment where people feel like work and life just blend together. But I will say the richest companies also still have attrition. They have people walk out the door. So if that was the solution, then you wouldn't see large tech companies losing talent at the rates that they're losing it. So what I like to say, and the reason I joined Fringe, is because you really have to meet people where they are. And so what Fringe's mission is to make sure that everyone wakes up happy to go to work. And the way that we choose to accomplish that is to give custom lifestyle benefits that you can take engagement in today, not later. So a lot of times when you think about the table stake benefits, you're thinking about health insurance, medical, dental, vision, 401k, but some of these benefits can feel very far off unless you have an acute issue or a chronic issue, unless you are planning to retire in the next 5 years. They don't feel like they're real and tangible. And so people can end up leaving money on the table because they're going from one company to another, not really investing in themselves through those components. So what Fringe wants to do, and is actually doing with over 50,000 users on our platform, is offering benefits that fit your lifestyle right now. Hey, do you want professional development? We have Blinkist. Use your Fringe points to be able to devote yourselves in 7 minutes or less. Hey, don't want to cook dinner on Friday night because you're exhausted from a long week of work? Go ahead and use your DoorDash points to be able to order a meal for you and your family. So being able to have customizable benefits that you can choose at your whim and that your employer provides can, I would say, further enhance the employee value proposition as a total rewards package.
Absolutely. Well, I think in our first conversation, I told you I have a dental benefit where they give me and my family a toothbrush. It's sometimes those little things, or DoorDash when you're exhausted after a day of managing kids and work and Zoom calls all day and things like that. It's those little things that I think a lot of people need and want, that you're right, are far more tangible in the moment than whether or not my 401k, which isn't producing very well right now, is going to do by the time I retire. I think that's really important. It also helps companies to define what their values are, I think.
Right.
I think as we talk to different clients and we understand where they're putting their benefits, for instance, some very, very technical companies are putting a lot of weight into training and professional development and elements like that, where it's saying we value this piece and we want you to take advantage of this piece as part of our culture. How are companies learning? Well, first defining who they are and then matching benefits to share those values, their own cultural values.
That's a great question. And, in our conversation before this, we even talked about the fact that benefits wasn't at the forefront of the employee value proposition for a long time, right? It was like this other thing that, yeah, of course you get this and to go watch after 40 years, but let's really talk about what's happening now. So I just love that benefits has become top of mind for so many employers as part of why it's great to work here. And I think one of the driving forces behind that is mental health. It's one of those things that are the number one claim, I think, in almost every single country right now. I don't know anyone who is coming out of this pandemic, because let's be honest, we're still partially in it, that's feeling like, man, that did wonders for the way that, I think about things. I feel great. I'm so happy. I think the pandemic has done a number of different things. It's accelerated innovation in our ability to be at home and be able to work from home. It has definitely broken down barriers for those who identify as disabled, whether it may be visible disabilities, or those that we can't see. Just a lot more people were able to enter the workplace in opportunities that they haven't seen. But we also saw a lot of people leave the workplace, especially women. So when a workplace is saying, hey, I want to get more underrepresented talent into my organization, women, Black people, it's the beginning of Hispanic Heritage Month, Latinx people into their organization, they have to look at what those benefits offerings are and how they actually acclimate. A great example is, before I was a mom, I just saw benefits as this important thing. But then when I realized like, hey, I have to balance, hanging out at work and having that happy hour with picking my kid up at daycare by a specific time, I needed more than that ping pong table. I may need more flexibility in where and when I can work. I may be more interested in dependent healthcare services, like how expensive is my premium when I'm adding my child and maybe my partner onto my medical plans. So we really have to think about the audience and the employee population that you want to have or you currently have, and how you're better suited to meet their needs. Because if you're not, yes, you may be able to recruit them, but you will not be able to retain them.
To retain them. I love that. And I'm so curious about some of the interesting things that you're seeing that combine benefits with this diversity and inclusion. Talk a little bit more about how these two are coming together.
Yeah, when we think about equity, I think people get confused about what the true definition of that word may mean. Equity doesn't mean that you're favoring one group over another. It really means that you're meeting the need so that everyone can have a fair outcome. So one example that I like to use, and this has actually happened in my experience, is that you may have an employee who's based out of, I'm just going to choose a random state, Wyoming. That wasn't the exact real case, but let's just use Wyoming. The reason I use that is because I'm from New York, so Wyoming seems super far away, but it truly isn't. And let's just say that happens to be employee number one in that state. Although you may be giving out the same exact medical, dental, and vision benefits to everyone in your company, that Wyoming employee may not have the same access to doctors. Maybe there aren't as many in-network doctors, so they're going to end up paying more. Or maybe they have a condition, maybe it's a fertility challenge that they're having, and they may not have access to, a high-end fertility doctor that's within 50 miles. You can say, well, that's that person's problem. We do have fertility benefits. If it doesn't work for your zip code, that's on you. But most organizations would go, hey, this is an employee. We told them that we want to be there to support you. And the reason we're spending millions of dollars on benefits is to be able to meet that need. So what you would do is actually research. What does that mean for that employee? How can I close the gap for them? Does that mean that they need to be flown out to the closest place and that our insurance carrier will cover that because it's their lack of access, not the employee's fault for that? That's equity. Because at the end of the day, that employee is able to receive the benefit and have an outcome that somebody who lives in New York or LA would be able to have. So you're not necessarily making the benefit richer for them. You're just ensuring that everyone can get to that same outcome.
That is actually a really, really important distinction. And it brings me to one of my huge pet peeves, that access. So benefits, when I consider myself a relatively smart person, but it can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming to even understand what is being offered, to take the time to run through all the documents. This is how I didn't know about that toothbrush for so long. But how do we make this as organizations easier for people to understand what the heck they've got and how to use it? I think we're all leaving a lot on the table with these things.
Domini, are you telling me you don't just sit at home on a weekend and read through the benefits guide page by page, bullet point by bullet point, just like sitting on the edge of your seat, excited about these things?
I'm having trouble sleeping.
Okay, that's fair. And to be quite fair, it is very dense material. There are some times where I start to feel like I know I'm a smart person and I'm paid to actually know this and I'm confused, right? But there's also, we have to realize that there is a lot of different external factors at play. You have the government that's constantly changing, like COVID. We didn't know COVID was coming. And then it's like, well, is testing covered? Is it not covered? Is it covered through insurance? Do I need to? I'm not even talking about like testing so you can go back to work. I'm just saying, who pays for that? Is it the employer? Is it the insurance company? So as we're always getting these different things coming into the plans, employers have to adjust for that, and they have to figure out, how do we actually cover that? Then once you actually figure that piece out, how do we make it simple English so that way you don't have to be a doctor or have a master's degree in healthcare to be able to explain it? And so one of the more compelling things that my teams have done is actually do reboarding. A lot of times when you're thinking about it, the only time you hear about any of your benefits is when you're coming on board, because we want to be competitive and bring you on, or open enrollment, which is a forced campaign that we have to do because the government requires us to do it, which is great because it allows you to reevaluate what you want. But that's that one time a thing year that you're like annoyed from the HR team that they keep peppering you
very rushed with emails, and it feels frantic,
and it feels like, pressure. So I think the best way to do it is do a reboarding every 3 to 6 months. Focus in on a certain program: fertility, mental health, student loans, personal development, like whatever aspect, and just invite people in. Another thing that I've seen be super successful is if you have employee resource groups, ERGs, sometimes called business resource groups, within your organization. Meet with them and ask them, what is a concern? Is it financial wellness? Maybe you should meet with them and go over what the 401k program looks like in detail. Go over what, if you offer equity at your company, what is equity? What does it mean to be vested? How do you actually gain wealth from these things? How do you leave it as a legacy for your loved ones? And you can have your actual vendors come in and do this programming. It doesn't have to be this all-inclusive, all HR effort. But by doing those things, you are actually saying to the employees, not only do I see you, I want you to truly be involved and benefit from these benefits.
I love that. I love that. That is actually such a good point, because every other organization, and now I'm deeply involved in our benefits, but every other organization, it is just that one time. And then you just are sort of left to your own devices. with some of the changes that are happening for us as a great big social community, of course, we're seeing some interesting benefits like cyber benefits and DoorDash and toothbrushes with your dental plan. Where do you think this is going as you're looking into the future, whether it's 2 weeks from now or 10 years from now? What do you think is up and coming? What should we be paying attention to as employers and as people trying to attract and retain talent?
I think there's, again, a lot of things going on. And I love that you're thinking about the future of work and the future of benefits.
Yeah.
And benefits actually really started more as a union effort, right? People were working these amazing hours, 6 days a week. Like the 5-day work week, people feel like has been around forever. Not really. I don't even think that's 100 years old. And so, when people were getting hurt and injured, they were like, let's just get some safety things in. And then we just built from there. But our benefits are still cast in a way that it's assuming you're going to work for the company for the rest of your life. So I think more innovative companies are looking at ways to go, what is a typical career arc for someone who comes to work with us? Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? And then making benefits that if someone stays with you that long, they actually do benefit. They don't lose out or feel fear of walking away and then losing so much of what they just built on. So if you have a 401k program, which I highly recommend you continue to have, how can you make sure that people can participate in that while dealing with student loan debt, which is the today problem? Sure. How can you help people, figure out not only their mental health and physical health, but hey, you want to move. What does that mean? What does that entail? How can we help you purchase a house? How can we meet the season of your life? And when you can curate those benefits in a way that doesn't list out 80, because I've also worked at those companies where you're like, oh, I didn't even know that was a benefit. Forget the toothbrush. Like, oh, we do have milk stores where I can ship breast milk back to my kid. You never told me that. I did when you were 22. You are now 26. How are you going to remember? So just making sure that, again, if you have a women's group, making sure that comes up. If you're reboarding, showing that to those employees who are not just active, but also are always looking. So the way that I approach benefits is how can I make it not just compelling to the people I want in the organization, but remind the people who are currently there that we are still interacting with you. We still want to keep you. And anything that you think can make this better, we need your feedback to make those right decisions.
This feels like such a client-centered and understanding that your employees are your clients. I think as you're talking about this is not the way I have come to expect benefits to be considered and executed in other organizations. Is this a new way of thinking?
I want to say it's a new way of thinking, but the best way that I can express it, especially to the CFOs of the world, who I do adore, is after salaries, because that is the number one cost to any company. Salaries, how much you're paying your people. Your number two cost is not leases, it's not even the products that you're making, are your benefits. You're already investing 7, 8, sometimes 10-figure budgets into those things. If you're not optimizing them, it's a loss on ROI. So yes, it can feel innovative, but I would say that it's even just a way to make sure that you're optimizing the investments you already have in your people. And if you're not willing to get the HR talent that can bring that to fruition, you're missing on great opportunities. And honestly, the retention issues that you have, you're still allowing to happen.
Well, and I'm curious if anyone has done any numbers around, so there's the cost of salary, the cost of benefits. What's the cost of that attrition? What's the cost of having open positions and people walking out the door and only onboarding and retraining, et cetera, when people leave because they're not happy with these two pieces?
Oh yeah, I can share that with you. So I like to pull a lot of data from the Department of Labor. And even the Kaiser Foundation actually does a study year to year about like how much do benefits cost. And the number that I've seen for the last 5 to 10 years has been 32 32% of an employee's total compensation is embedded in their benefit programs.
Yeah.
So when someone is walking out the door, they're leaving 32% of their comp behind. So what I even tell my close personal friends is, if you're getting an offer, I want you to go look and ask them, what are your premiums for medical insurance? Because if you're going to pay double or triple what you were paying before, you actually didn't get a salary increase, you just got a decrease. If they're not matching your 401k, investing in your HSA, willing to walk you through a fertility journey, these are things that are super important to you because they can end up costing you $50, $100, $200,000 down the line. And so when you're thinking about if someone leaves, it usually takes about 90 days to backfill that position, and then another 90 days to be able to get that new person up and running at 100%. That's 6 months of salary you just lost because you didn't let someone know how valued they were and how much money you've already invested in their total reward.
How are those conversations going over with CFOs when it's presented in this way? It seems very obvious. When they look at the numbers, is it the same? Are they seeing that same value? Are they?
Yeah, and I think it's about being able to talk to people in the way that they can receive information. And so if I'm having that conversation with the CFO, that's the way that I would present the exact same information. If I'm having a conversation with my chief diversity officer and really want to partner with them, I would say, okay, what are some of the metrics that you're looking to do? Are you trying to increase the number of women that we have at the leadership levels? What do women at that leadership level typically want? On average, a lot of them can be mothers, right?
Yeah.
So what are some programs that we have for working parents? That would be on me to look as the benefits expert. If we're thinking about bringing more people of underrepresented talent, like maybe we want to have a focus on people with disabilities. What are we doing in terms of accommodations? Are our medical plans actually covering some of the more acute things that are needed? Do we need to actually amp up our mental health benefits? These are the ways that I can partner with different divisions within the company so we can actually join forces and be more inclusive holistically.
Interesting. Okay, so you've talked a good deal about diversity and inclusion. Talk to me about one of the organizations that you know, and you don't have to necessarily name them, but that's doing a great job of this, and what makes their program shine.
I can actually name more so in aggregate. I think when I see organizations that really truly partner with their employee resource groups, those are the ones that can shine. Because I will honestly say, I would rather work at a company that my friend who looks like me, my friend who has similar values to me, invites me to interview for, than just finding it on LinkedIn. Yes, of course, that's, preferable. That's not always the situation. But I say, if women feel accepted in your organization, guess who they're going to recommend? Other women. If people who identify within the LGBTQIA plus community feel comfortable in your organization, who are they going to recommend in that employee referral program? People within that community. So I think that some of the problems that we're trying to solve one by one can actually be resolved if we just start to address and accommodate in a way that is fair for all these different communities. There's no one silver bullet. So I think it's really thinking about where you are, where you want your aspirations to be, and between those two places, partnering with the people who are currently there. And maybe if you don't have that community within your organization, finding communities externally, whether it may be networking groups, whether it may be other organizations that you can lean on and learn from them. The idea of having these very siloed, protected policies where no one knew what the parental leave policy was until you were there for like a year, those days are over. If you don't share it, guess what? Your employees will share it on TikTok, on LinkedIn, on some social media platform. So be proactive, be proud of what you have. And if you feel that there's anything that's lacking, be honest about that, because it's only with you growing that you'd be able to actually accomplish that anyway.
That's interesting too. And I think one of the important parts that you brought up there is that is getting help. understanding what you don't know, because I think that's where a lot of us sit, especially in smaller organizations.
Mhm.
So in a very large organization, these employee resource groups are they happen organically. In smaller organizations, that's more difficult. Are there resources? Are there places you would recommend for smaller organizations to go and learn, and more of a community that would help support those kinds of conversations?
Yeah, for me myself, and this can be time consuming, so take this with a grain of
Yeah.
salt. But I'm part of several Slack communities as well as LinkedIn groups of HR professionals of different types of groups, whether it be
Mm.
Black HR professionals or HR professionals with small organizations, tech organizations. And though I may not necessarily always be vocal in those groups, just seeing the challenges that they're going
Sure.
through, seeing the programs that they're launching. And that's what I'm saying. The knowledge share is where we need to meet. Because again, if most employees are having a 3 to 5 year career arc, guess what? They're going to go to your competitor
They
or they're
will.
going to be coming from your competitor, right? So why not just make that employee experience very similar in terms of you're cared for, you have what you need to do excellent work for the season that you're with us. And if we're sharing that information, we're making the workplace better for everyone.
Sure. Sure. That is very, very true. Well, and I know as an employer, I want people to stay as long as I can possibly keep them. So crafting benefits that incentivize longevity
Mhm.
and honor reality is sometimes a very delicate balance, because you're right, people stay 3 to 5 years. Kind of, that's the way it is. How are employers best striking that balance, incentivizing longevity, but honoring where people are?
I love that question. The
Mm.
best way that I can answer that is to know that that's where career pathing and career development really need to be at the forefront.
Sure.
Because yes, people may be in a job for 3 to 5 years, but that's because jobs get outdated that quickly. Very rarely do you see someone who's like, not only do I love my job description, I don't want to do one more bullet point outside of it. That's not normal.
Yeah.
People want to be faced with new challenges. They want to be able to grow personally and professionally. So if you're creating career paths within your organization, even if I'm talking about flat organizations, less than 50 employees, you want to keep that institutional knowledge in the door. What else can that person do? How can you upskill them? How can you make sure that they're cross collaborating as soon as it's possible for them and actually make sense for your company? That's how you keep someone in house. And so that again is a benefit. Are you doing a professional development stipend? Are you encouraging people and helping to pay maybe a subsidy or fully for people to get different certifications? Because if I know that I'm going to continue to grow as a professional and have my skill sets refreshed with you, then I don't need to go seek that senior leadership position somewhere else, because I have to restart again. My reputation, relationships. I rather stay at some place that can get me to that next level, and I can still maintain all those other things like my equity and my 401k. So I think you have to
Sure.
look at professional development as part of a benefit and perk to employees too, and make sure they're as robust as they can be for where you are.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think you're very right. My father was with the same company for 42 years, and that
Amazing.
just doesn't happen anymore.
No.
But part of that was the ability to continually grow and improve. And I suspect, knowing some of the organizations that are struggling so much with talent, that's not necessarily something that they are always looking for. There's always that pull. Well, they're doing such a great job here.
Mhm.
I don't want to lose this great work here by promoting them into something else. It's it's definitely a challenge, and coming up with that real client service when it comes to benefits and employee retention. I think that is the gift you have given us today. I love
Awesome.
that.
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as you're considering this career growth for this profession and where everything is going, tell, as we're wrapping things up, where do you see this career growth for the profession headed? What's next?
I think what's next is, consultative HR. I think for so long we have been this administrator of like super dense information that feels more punitive or reactionary than necessarily proactive. And so I think now that we have more of a seat at the table, you're seeing, executive level HR talent and being able to go to the business. What do you need and how can I help solve your problem? And again, looking at those different divisions and saying, I need to be able to meet the CFO because I also don't want to, create a benefits program that is not scalable and that we can't afford. And then we have to start taking things away. I want to be able to partner with our diversity, equity, and inclusion goals and make sure that we're supporting them in any way that we can. I think just being able to think as a holistic leader and being more involved in the business day to day will make the profession a much richer experience, not just for the professional, but for every employee that it touches.
I love that. I love that. Cassandra, you are wonderful, and I look forward to future conversations. Thank you so much for being with us today. Such a great topic and so important.
Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. I look forward to future conversations.
Same.
Thank you.